Let's go. Easter, the notorious pagan holiday, haunts us every April, sometimes May, every year. We feel obligated as a biblical and Christian duty to say Resurrection Sunday or something of the like to try to counteract the pagan history that we are aware of. But how aware are we really? Is Easter a pagan holiday? Did Christ rise from the dead on a pagan holiday on purpose? Are the stories we find in the Bible, like the resurrection, based on pagan mythology, as some assert, causing Easter and the resurrection of Christ to coincide? Was Herod in Acts 12:4 waiting for his pagan holiday of Easter, which would celebrate the goddess Astarte? Was he waiting until that was done in order to bring Peter forth to the people? Or was Easter in that passage mistranslated when it should have been, instead of Easter, it should have been Passover, as modern versions and many other versions assert, and modern version defenders? Are King James Bible believing defenses of the word Easter in Acts 12:4 correct? Do they hold water? Or do they even hold Easter eggs? Little Easter basket is what's floating around in my mind right now. Easter grass is awful. Ugh. I'm glad that we don't use this stuff. You find it all year long. That's ridiculous. So, I hate to break it to you, but there is a conspiracy behind the Bible translation controversy, which is undermining Christianity and our civilization at this very moment. My name is Joseph Armstrong, and welcome to the Bible Version Conspiracy. We're making a search engine, basically, where we will not only expose the translation controversy, conspiracy, but we will also deal with the hard to ask, hard to answer questions about the Bible's history, King James Bible's perfection or problems, and its supernatural character. If you care to join us on a deeper level, you can join our Bible Version Conspiracy Secret Society on Buy Me a Coffee. Check out the link in the description for that. And there's all kinds of other things in the description, including a playlist where I will be throwing all of the videos that I find that relate to this question of whether or not Easter should be in the Bible. And let me warn you that if you want to stick around to the end of the video, you could be in for some interesting things. I hope we're able to get to it tonight. If not, I may have to do a part 2. This will be coming out Saturday at noon. That would be the 20th. Is that correct? Yeah. I think that's right. Okay. I've been looking into some things recently regarding not flat Earth, but hollow Earth. And just I I've listened to it before, but I don't know what it is itching me right here. It's like, ow. But anyways, I've been listening to a playlist by, I'm not sure what that guy's actual name is, but he calls himself Mr. Mythos on YouTube. And I'm looking forward to doing a page eventually on the Hollow Earth because it comes into biblical cosmology a lot. It comes in with the idea of the conspiracy theory, with the different people that are cited by Gail Ripplinger in New Age Bible versions. There's a lot there, and I'm looking forward to going into that as well. There's actually a premiere right now because if I wasn't actually doing this, I would be watching this premiere by the Soul Trap where he's interviewing a guy talking about a book that he wrote called Giants, Angels, and Life Underground or something. I forget. Very, very, very interesting. And going into that book, I am looking forward to seeing what this guy knows about it and watching that episode that the Soul Trap is putting on right now. I'm looking forward to that. Let's get into our topic, though. Let's get into our topic. There is so much going on. And right now, I'm just about to the point where I want to change the goal that I have set for our supporters to reach. At first, it was, we'll start a nightly live stream with members only when we reach $500 a month worth of support from people. It's $7 a month for everybody. They can also put in custom amounts that they want to pledge monthly. Link to that is in the description. That's the Buy Me a Coffee link. And I am this close, that close, to changing it to something else. I have an idea, but if you, dear viewer, have something that you would rather see us do when we hit that mark, then let me know. Let me know. Okay. Let's go over to the website. That's too small. Let's do this here. That's better. So we're going to head over to a page under topics. Easter. It's got a little chick hatching out of there in case you can't see. Happy Easter / Passover / Resurrection Sunday. Yeah, because that's about how convoluted this is. And really, guys, think about it. If we can't nail down the resurrection, because there's a lot of controversy of, did he rise on Sunday, or did he rise on Saturday night, Sunday morning when the sun was rising? Was he crucified on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday? We don't know. If we can't get the resurrection straightened out and figured out, my goodness. That's what all of Christianity is based on. And we know so little about the resurrection. What the early church, I believe, called the event. How are we so negligent and confused? All right. Easter tradition for most King James Bible defenders is to say a little something about Acts 12:4, which reads, "And when he," that's Herod, "had apprehended him," that is Peter, he, Herod, "put him," Peter, "in prison and delivered him," Peter, "to 4 quaternions of soldiers to keep him, intending after Easter to bring him forth to the people." I think that's my... Hang on a second. There may be some background noise for some people. There may not. Do you guys hear background noise? I'm not sure. Comments, it doesn't look like there are any, so that's good. So I had a lot of questions. Just before Easter, I came out with this video that you see right here, and I hadn't had a chance to do research that I needed to in order to make a lot of assertions in that video. It more or less ended with me being like, I don't know. I have unanswered questions as to whether or not Acts 12:4 translating Pascha as Easter is correct or not. So that's where I asked some questions, and if you check out that playlist, there is a lot on there. There are 51 videos on that playlist right now. You can check it out on our YouTube channel, or you can go to our website here, BibleVersionConspiracy.com/Easter. There's a lot on there. Here are what I've called the Pascha Papers, because it alliterates. These are different articles by the Trinitarian Bible Society, KJV Today, Will Kinney, Thomas Holland, who wrote Crowned with Glory, Sam Gipp, who wrote the Answer Book, Scott Jones, and Jack A. Moorman, who was the guy who my own pastor referred to for his information that he gave on Easter morning this year. He referred to Jack A. Moorman's paper. The standard argument goes that Easter, that word right there, is referring to the pagan holiday of Istar, which would have been celebrated by Herod and all that. And Easter there is translated correctly in distinction from Passover, because Passover was already passed. And that is because Acts 12 also says that these were the days of unleavened bread, which is apparently supposed to have been like, the week or so after the day of Passover. Matthew Henry chimes in and says that, and here's the thing that gets me, is King James Bible believing people like Sam Gipp, people like this, they will say Herod had no reason to want to celebrate a Jewish holiday, Passover, and then bring Peter out afterwards, after him, Herod, was done celebrating. That would be ludicrous. So we don't expect that to be the case. We expect him to be waiting until after he's done celebrating his happy pagan holiday. Problem. Matthew Henry believes that it should have been Easter, or that it could have been not Easter, that it should have been translated Passover. And here's the reason that he gives for why Herod wanted to wait. Herod would not condemn him till the Passover was over, some think, for fear lest he should have such an interest among the people that they should demand to release the release of him according to the custom of the feast. So in other words, if I talk to them about it now, they're going to be like, oh, well, we should let him go, and then it's just going to be so anticlimactic. So let me wait until after, the good-natured festival is over, and then we'll see about Peter. Or after the hurry of the feast was over, so places full of pilgrims, people that come to Jerusalem just for Passover, and they really don't have the whole context of why we would be killing this dude Peter anyways. So let them have their festival. And after the hurry of the feast was over, the town was empty, he would entertain the people that were already there, that already hated Peter. They would entertain them with Peter's public execution. That's the sense I've been able to make from Matthew Henry's comment since the last stream that I did on Easter. There's a lot on this page. There's a lot. So you'll actually, can you even see that? The bar is only this big. Right there. These seem like good reasons for Herod to acknowledge the plan around the Jewish Passover without caring about it religiously. It seems good to me. Personally, I want to know why Tyndale and Luther and people like this used Passover and Easter. It looks like interchangeably. They just use it indiscriminately. One's this, one's that. Every time they come across the word that modern translations would translate as Passover, and the King James translates as Passover, in all these cases in the Old and New Testament. I want to say that Tyndale only did Easter in the New Testament, and then there were some places just here and there and stuff. So I've got to nail that all down before I go making any presentations anywheres or building slides. But the point is that Martin Luther and Tyndale and the Bishop's Bible, the Coverdale Bible, and the Matthew's Bible, all these different Bibles used Easter and Passover simultaneously. It seems synonymously. So why? There is one argument, which I believe is the point made by KJV today, which is this article right here. And they say, oh, well, they translated it Easter because that was, they recognized Easter and Passover being at the same time. So they used the Christianized holiday in place of Passover in different spots. Brian Ross, who wrote the book, let me show it to you. He wrote this book right here. Called Don't Pass Over Easter. I haven't read it yet, but I have gotten a copy, and I am definitely looking forward to reading it. Seems to be a very thorough and historical treatment of the question of Easter. But he asserts some interesting things. I'm going to skip this part for now. Okay, so I recommend that you guys watch this 3-part series. It's in the playlist. This is part 2. If you go to the Easter playlist, it'll be some of the first few videos on there, all 3 parts. Tyndale and Luther translated Pascha and Easter in places besides Acts 12:4 in their translations, but why? Brian C. Ross shows, if nothing else, how both sides of the Bible translation, both sides of the Bible version debate seem to have done very little research into this question. And I'm just like, wow, thank you, Brian, because this is dumb. I'm telling you guys, after listening to his thing, I've listened to everything that Gip had on Easter as of what? Like probably about 8 years ago or so. I had listened to everything by Sam Gipp that he had on Easter up to that point. And it made sense, and I was just like, okay. I never even asked myself the question. I didn't even know that Easter was used in earlier translations in different places. Having that knowledge, I was just like, okay, hold up. There's something going on here that I don't get, and I want to make sense of it. So, especially before I go promoting some defense of Easter that is biased or incorrect. Both sides, both the modern version defending side, the Contra KJV only, and the KJV only, KJV detractors and the KJV defenders, both of them seem to have done absolutely no research as to this question. Absolutely none. The one says, it should have been Passover. I don't know why they put Easter there. That was dumb. And then the other side goes, no, 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 no. It should be Easter, and Easter's nothing to do with Passover. Easter is pagan because Alexander Hislop said so. And it's like, what's the evidence for Easter being a pagan word? I would love to know that. Just because it sounds similar to Istar does not mean that Easter came from Istar. Ken Johnson's book points that out, that the etymological origins, it's not there. I don't know if this is a case of the famous Jesuits going into the dictionaries and changing things so that in this modern era, when we go to look up Easter, we find that it has Germanic roots and Anglo-Saxon roots, I believe, that show that Easter actually comes from the word dawn or rising, and that it does not originate with Babylonian paganism or Roman paganism or anything else. I would love to dig into that etymological aspect of the whole thing. There's a couple of important points that Brian covers in this book. Brian points out the inconsistencies in Sam Gipp's argument for Easter, including Easter's non-existent relation to Istar, apparently invented by Hislop. Yes, apparently the connection between Istar and Easter was because they sound phonetically similar in English, and Hislop said that's where it came from. I still need to check his statements. I provide them for you on the page so you can check them out. They come a little bit later on this page right here. But I need to check to see if he had any sources at all for that assertion. Oh, we're not done. There we go. Okay. Herod's desire to please the Jews. Now, this is one thing that I think I'm pretty sure that when I was listening to Sam Gipp's stuff, oh well, he didn't want to respect Passover. He didn't want to keep Passover. That would be dumb. Well, hang on a second. He saw that Peter's imprisonment and all that pleased the Jews. He liked seeing them happy with his cruelty. So it would make sense, not even just to please the Jews, but also, like Matthew Henry points out, strategically, it would make sense for him to wait until after the Passover celebration. That would identify the entire festival as the Passover, not just one day and then the days of unleavened bread. He was waiting until after Easter, not just one day. He was waiting until after, possibly, Passover, an entire celebration for the crowds to leave, because they would stick around for the days of unleavened bread as well. They're not just going to come for, Passover morning service or whatever and then go home. They're gonna stay there. It was a huge tourist time, I'm sure. Herod saw that this pleased the Jews, and that was his desire, was to make them happy. So he wasn't going to step all over their holiday. Not saying that killing Peter would have stepped all over their holiday, but it kind of would have. It would have subtracted from what, or detracted from what they were trying to celebrate there. them being saved from Egypt. And like Matthew Henry points out, it makes sense strategically for them not to have a soft heart toward Peter and make him let him go, and also for the crowds to kind of dissipate so that he could please his local Jews. Also, two things that apparently Sam Gipp didn't deal with, because I don't remember Sam Gipp ever taking one verse and pointing it out as contradicting what he was saying. When he said Passover was the first day and the rest of the days of the celebration were the days of unleavened bread, and they are never called Passover collectively. Yes, I'm going to look up these references right here real quick. We're looking at Ezekiel 45:12. And you know me, I love finding where, like, the whole debate thing, when there's holes, I love it, because it's just like, here's a spot that needs to get cleaned out. Like, you got a rotten board or something. Well, there's rotten stuff around this hole, so let's take all the rotten stuff out. Let's put in something solid. Let's get this fixed, squared away, and now it's good. It's great. It's constructive, especially to admit that we're wrong. And if we don't see that we're wrong, not to just go, that's stupid, I'm not gonna, but to go, hey, Joseph, hey, Brian, I see what you're saying, but what about blah, blah, blah? And then we go, that's right. Hey, let's figure this out together. Ezekiel 45:21. In the first month, in the 14th day of the month, ye shall have the Passover, a feast of 7 days. Unleavened bread shall be eaten. That sounds like it's identifying all of the feast of 7 days as Passover, in that it says, ye shall have the Passover, comma, a feast of 7 days. And then semicolon, unleavened bread shall be eaten. And Matthew 26:17 and 18. I would love to hear Sam Gipp's response to Brian Ross. I would love to hear that. I don't know what condition Sam Gipp is in now. I mean, I'm sure he's getting up there, I'm sure. But I would love to see a debate between Brian Ross and Sam Gipp. That would be fantastic. Not because, well, I mean, there is also kind of the element of, oh yeah, they're gonna, that's always something that's entertaining. But then it's also just like, let's get to the bottom of this. Let's get the points and counterpoints and stuff so we can make up our minds. Because we got to do it. Can't halt between two opinions. Matthew 26:17 and 18. Now the first day of the feast of unleavened bread. Now the first day of the feast of unleavened bread, the disciples came to Jesus, saying unto him, where wilt thou that we prepare for thee to eat the Passover? So this is the first day of the feast of unleavened bread. The first day of the feast of unleavened bread. And they said, where do you want us to prepare you to eat the Passover? They were time travelers, okay? They were going to be going back in time the day before to celebrate Passover. Well, wait a second. Was the Passover the first day of the feast of unleavened bread? Wait a second. It was the first day of the feast of unleavened bread. And they said, where do you want to eat the Passover? So that was like the day of Passover. but it was also the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread. The Feast of Unleavened Bread didn't start after the day of Passover. It looks to me like it started the day of. And Jesus said, "How darest thou proclaim that this be the day of Passover, thou fool?" He didn't say that. And he said, "Go into the city to such a man, and say unto him, The master saith, My time is at hand. I will keep the Passover at thy house with my disciples." And the disciples did as Jesus had appointed them, and they made ready the Passover. Interesting. Okay. This book highlights the deficiency in both KJV critical and KJV only rhetoric surrounding this Easter debate. I can't wait for my copy to arrive. Oh, wait, I already have it. Cool. I'll have to change that now. Is Easter pagan? We've even got these things in the playlist. This is Easter is not pagan. The resurrection of Jesus, introduction. Also very good. Good apologetic stuff. Pan-Babylonianism we have on one side. That would be your Alexander Hislop, who believes everything happened based on Nimrod. So Nimrod would have been the I believe grandson, if I'm not mistaken, of Ham. And he started building Babel, and all of the wicked traditions of paganism and Ishtar and all of this stuff can be traced all the way back to the Tower of Babel with this evil world governor. I'm not trying to make fun or make light of that, because substantially it's correct from what I've seen. Substantially. Not exactly. BibleFacts.org. So Pan-Babylonianism would say Nimrod started all this stuff with Easter. You know, you've got your rabbits, and you've got your eggs, and you've got your sunrise service, and all these things. Easter, I believe, actually is the first thing that Hislop actually deals with, where he's a Protestant attacking Catholicism and the traditions of Catholicism. And he's like, guys, we can't celebrate these things because they go all the way back to paganism. BibleFacts.org says Noah and his sons started all this. Big difference. So when we have Nimrod being the corrupt spring, like Jack Chick and their ministry, Chick Publications, just one chick. Here a chick, there a chick, everywhere a chick, and just one. Chick Publications. When he's the beginner of all of these different things, usually you'll find that you're talking with a Jehovah's Witness or somebody with a box of Chick tracts. Usually that's the case, one of these two people. And also Flat Earth and a lot of these things are associated with Pan-Babylonianism. Pan-Babylonianism is immensely popular, and it's been around for quite a while. And Hislop's Two Babylons is as well. Very popular. He's kind of the fountainhead of Pan-Babylonianism. There was one other guy around the same time. I forget his name. Not Woodstra. I don't know. I forget his name. But anyways, BibleFacts.org says that the origins of our modern holidays and a lot of the traditions surrounding them actually have more biblical roots. For instance, Christmas wreaths. He points out how evergreens are also used as decoration in Jewish festivals that are based on the Bible. There's and rabbits and eggs and all these other different things play into it as well. Here's what I did for you guys. I made it so you can read the full text of the two Babylons, section 3 on Easter. Boom. You can read the whole thingy-wingy. And I believe there's an illustration. Yeah, there's a couple of illustrations too for your viewing pleasure. Lots of text. And I will admit, I haven't read it yet, but I will. I will. So there's that. And just in case you want to compare that to what Ken Johnson says, here is the full text of Ancient Origins of Modern Holidays section on Easter. Boom. The name Easter, reckoning of time with the Venerable Bede. And I have a link too if you want to check out the context. I want to do the same thing with Hislop as well. Here's a link to Bede, The Reckoning of Time. And you guys can check out exactly what Bede did say and the context surrounding the statement. You're welcome. The Easter egg stuff. Easter Bunny. Takes a little while for that little graphic to load there, but that's okay. And I would also recommend a historical treatise on the travels of Noah in Europe. That I keep coming back to that. In my opinion, both are correct. I feel Hislop helped to expose a lot of pagan practice and Gnosticism, which had crept into Catholicism and Anglicanism and Protestant churches throughout the centuries. However, he did not go far enough in his research to find the origins of the holidays, etc., the holidays and traditions. Because he figured out that that pagans ate pancakes. That's what he figured out. He didn't figure out who invented pancakes. Okay? On the other hand, Ken Johnson, I feel, doesn't go down to the roots of pagan practices and often hang on a second. Okay, rewind that. On the other hand, Ken Johnson gets down to the roots of the pagan practices and often reveals their biblical origins. His research exposing Halloween is one of my favorite examples because Halloween apparently was in case I haven't mentioned before, Halloween is supposed to have been the day that the flood started to destroy the wickedness that existed before it. Noah commanded to celebrate that time in remembrance of the things before that were destroyed. And it's easy to see how this celebration, this remembrance of the destruction of wickedness could be perverted into a celebration of the wickedness and a celebration of death and destruction. Okay. However, sometimes Ken fails to acknowledge the influence of Gnosticism and paganism. The influence Gnosticism and paganism have had on history through Roman Catholicism. You can let us know what you think below. So here's the thing. In Bill Cooper's book on the ancient history of Europe, he talks about, his first chapter is about how people see God across the world. Here's what I think happened. I think Noah's flood happened. Okay, we agree on that. And what happened is Noah, and as the Dead Sea Scrolls reveal, the patriarchs before him and the patriarchs after him knew a lot about the Messiah. They knew a lot about his coming, about what he was coming for, about how he would come, about when he would come too. And all of this was preserved through Noah's line, came up into his sons, Ham, Shem, Japheth, or Ham, Shem, Japheth, Sham. It's a sham. Sham. Wow, that he was the best. He was the best guy at doing the laundry in the Noah household. Ham, Shem, Japheth, and Sham. Sham. Wow, that's clean. All right. So they take those traditions, and what happens from there? They get corrupted. They start turning into paganism. Remember the traditions about Hollow Earth stuff? Minimize this real quick. Remember how some have said that the people and things that were before the flood, some of them survived by going underground. You ever heard that? My theory is that a lot of the pagan wickedness that started after the flood, the treatise of the Travels of Noah in Europe backs this part up, with Ham actually being the fountainhead of a lot of the problems that we see today with paganism, Gnosticism, necromancy, witchcraft, all this kind of stuff. Apparently goes back to Ham for the most part. And Ham was predominant in Egypt. Egypt I've got to look it up, but Egypt's old name is not Egypt. I think it started with a D, but its basic translation was basically like gate to the underworld or something like this. Something related to that. And Mr. Mythos talks about it in his video series. And that being said, did a lot of this stuff come up there with Ham? There's a lot to consider there. Just a lot. Let me know what your thoughts are. Debate it in the comments. Send me an email. My email address is literally right there. I see all the emails that I get sent, and I appreciate them. I see your guys' comments too, so leave a comment. Leave a comment on the website, and I'll get an email that way too. There's a form at the end of every page where you can reach out. Let me know what you think. So what I think happened after that is that this knowledge about the Messiah and about God and even the Trinity and even the time the Messiah would come and the prophecies about the end of the world, all of these got twisted and perverted in paganism to greater and lesser extents. And a lot of that information was preserved up through history. I'm not quite so sure, but there may have even been ways that God communicated directly with different pagan priests, but they were also kind of estranged from him at the same time. It's kind of a weird thought, but there's just so much weird stuff going on. Ay. So anyways, we're never going to get to the end of this. So you guys are welcome to check this out. Gotta minimize this again. Okay. Sabbath or Sunday, long story short, the Epistle of Barnabas is a really cool book, by the way. I highly recommend reading it. You can pick up the audiobook of it by clicking this image right here. It'll take you to the Ancient Epistle of Barnabas, which is a Christian translation by it's a conservative Calvary Chapel guy, translation, not the Anglican translation that you'll see with J.B. Lightfoot. So I highly recommend that you listen to that or read it, whichever media you prefer. And I include Barnabas 15 because there's a question on Facebook, did Christ really rise on Sunday? Sunday, oh, that's the day of the sun. That's pagan. But we know that Judaism has it right, and they celebrate on Saturday. So he must have resurrected on Saturday. Hands down, Jesus would not resurrect on a pagan day. Okay, so FYI, Satan did not invent Sunday. He didn't invent pancakes either. They're actually pretty good, especially on Sunday morning. So, Sabbath doesn't mean Satan's not involved at all. That's not how it works. What are the types? What are the pictures? What does the ancient church say? What does the Bible say? The Bible says that he rose early the first day of the week. Sam Gipp says that he rose at 6 o'clock in the afternoon or 6 o'clock in the evening on Saturday night. Because, the Jews' day started then, and he rose at night, and yeah, the ladies came, and yeah, the grave had been empty for hours and hours. That doesn't make any sense. It makes sense for Christ being the Son of God, the Son of God, the Son of righteousness, like it talks about, I believe, in Malachi. It makes sense for him to rise with the sun. That's what a man does. It doesn't make sense for him to crawl out of a hole in the ground at the same time the foxes do. Doesn't, typologically, that just doesn't make sense. Anyways. So here. And by the way, witches' Sabbath, you ever heard of that? It's apparently mocking the idea of the Sabbath. I'm not sure how big a Sabbath, how big the Sabbath was in just the Gentile world. I would love to research that too. All these different things that I want, all these rabbits I want to chase. Was Sabbath just a day of saying a day of rest, just in general, and the Jews did it on the seventh day every week? Or was the term Sabbath borrowed from Judaism by the witches? Or were a lot of the witches Jewish? There's some stories even today. There was a lady that was like, yeah, we had a regular Jewish family by day, but I tell you what, things got scary when it got dark. Enough said. We'll get into a little bit more in a bit. So anyways, finally he saith to him, this is the J.B. Lightfoot translation. You can check out the whole thing at the handy dandy link, which is down there. Alternative translations and Lightfoot's translation. This is Lightfoot's. Let me make this bigger so y'all can see it. Finally he saith to them, your new moons and your Sabbaths I cannot away with. Because obviously, look at the major prophets. They were just keeping the Sabbath, but they were being awful on Sabbath. It is not your present Sabbaths that are acceptable unto me, but the Sabbath which I have made, in the which when I have set all things at rest, I will make the beginning of the 8th day. I will make the beginning of the 8th day, which is the beginning of another world. I'm not sure if that quotation has a source. It kind of seems to bleed maybe a couple of statements together, or possibly reference a couple of them simultaneously. Ken Johnson's book is very helpful. I recommend getting that brown book that I showed you a second ago, up toward the top here. Get that one. It actually has footnotes that gives you where the quotations in Barnabas are coming from, and lets you know where it's unknown where the statement is coming from. So that's very helpful. And Barnabas is all about types and figures. Very similar to the book of Hebrews that way. So this 8th day, I will make the beginning of the 8th day, which is the beginning of another world. Wherefore also we keep the 8th day for rejoicing, in the which also Jesus rose from the dead, and having been manifested, ascended into heaven. So the 8th day, Jesus rose. That's Sunday. Might have a Germanic name to it now that, makes you think of, I believe it's Sunna or whoever was the Germanic god of the sun. Or Suna, I forget how it's pronounced. There's a good deal of controversy as to which day of the week he was crucified. We're not going to weigh in on that here. I will at some point, though. Here's where things get a little bit strange. There's a good historical case to be made for the resurrection. I highly recommend that you check out Dr. Lane Craig. This is a 2-minute video that he did. There's another 5-minute video here with Capturing Christianity and Dr. Gary Habermas. He's got 2 enormous volumes on the resurrection that gives everything. It's ridiculous. And there is a book here that I'd also recommend. After I saw this interview with Jeremiah Johnson, he wrote this book, The Body of Proof. Very intelligent, well-researched, and he talks about the Gnostic Gospels and things. All that era of literature, that's actually his specialty. And I appreciate his treatment of that because it's very enlightening. Very enlightening. So I highly recommend his book, Body of Proof, and highly recommend that you watch that interview that I did. That's that one right there. And there's also, for a much longer presentation by Dr. Gary Habermas, check out This Historian Has New Evidence for the Resurrection of Jesus. That's the interview there, the whole thing. And for a much longer presentation by Dr. Craig, check out Did the Resurrection Really Happen? By William Lane Craig at UCSB. Now, I've really got to figure out how to get that dark font out of there. So annoying. We are sad to say that Bishop B.F. Westcott, the whipping boy of the KJV only movement, of the Revised Version fame, does not seem to have believed in the bodily resurrection, even though he did say that he believed it. What? Did he lie? Kinda, but not really. It's fascinating. So you can see more about this on our Westcott and Hort page. There's a helpful little link right there. Boom. You can check it out there under the page, under the section called Lake Spots the Fake, about Cursup Lake and what he had to say about Bishop Westcott. We need to know why we believe in the resurrection of Christ and to be able to defend it when questions are asked. Absolutely, we do. I've got a page on the resurrection as well on our card ministry. I've got to get this book and the audiobook, and I've got to listen to it more. It's great to revisit the apologetics surrounding the resurrection of Christ. Dr. Craig's stuff is awesome. Especially, I discovered Gary Habermas last year. Phenomenal researcher, author. We need this stuff, and we need it for our kids too, because if we can't even give a good reason to our kids, then, what is it worth to us? Let's take the time There's some resources here. Find your own resources. I don't care. Get some. The reason we're Christians is because we have hope in the resurrection of the dead because of the resurrection of Christ. Let's dig into it. Let's dive in and be ready to answer with the words of truth. But there's a dark underbelly to this. How about the gospel according to vampires? Dr. Bill Schneblin, author of Lucifer Dethroned and the book Romancing Death, a true story of vampirism, death, the occult, and deliverance. Bill Schneblin was just an average Catholic kid, trick-or-treating until he had what many would call a paranormal experience that would change his life forever. That experience was he's out trick-or-treating, he looks up at the night sky, look at all those nice stars and all this. Then all of a sudden, they're not stars. The entire sky turns into this mass of wriggling, writhing, black, horrifying substance. And there are millions of little red eyes looking back at him. It takes him a moment to realize, but when he looks up, what he sees is the underside of a cave's ceiling. The entire sky has transmorphed into a cave. And he looks up and he sees demonic bats all over this cave's ceiling. His friend looks at him and says, "Bill, what's going on?" And he looks at his friend with like this face, looks back up at the ceiling, and it's normal stars again. Guys, we need an open line of communication with our children. When something scares them, they need to be comfortable to tell you. And you need to know what to do. And so do I. As a grown man, Bill was part of what he claimed to be an ancient vampire cult based on the teachings of the Apostle John. See John 6 and John 11. That's something that's very interesting to me, given that the King James Bible was written in 1611, and you add those together and you get the number 9, and 6 is also in that 3 family. And there's 3 ones. Very interesting, occult-wise and also Nikola Tesla-wise. More on that maybe when we get into the whole King James numerology thing. Ooh, oh boy, guys, I tell you what, there's, and this is one reason why I have a hard time picking topics for these streams. Not because there's not enough fodder, because there's too much. It's like too many options. And also procrastination, I'll admit to that as well. Bill Schneblin was just an average Catholic kid. He grew up to be a member of a vampiric cult. His mentors in this cult made 4 chilling claims. First claim, Lazarus was the first vampire because he was undeaded by Christ. He's not the first one actually risen from the dead. They did that in the Old Testament too. And I'm also not sure that Jesus hadn't raised some people from the dead before Lazarus, so just saying. Jesus did rise from the dead. Oh, wait, hang on a second. I didn't bold this part. Okay. Second claim. Jesus did rise from the dead because he was a vampire. Oh, gotcha. Gotcha. So that's a couple of things we learned from that. Is we learn that it's not just enough to prove historically or rationally or scientifically that the rapture happened, or not the rapture, the resurrection happened. It's not enough to prove that. That just proves that there was a supernatural element that caused some dead person to get up out of a grave. It proves the supernatural dimension. It doesn't prove Christianity. Maybe the more you prove the resurrection, the more you reinforce some person's dark beliefs. Interesting how the name of this so-called vampire, which is supposed to have been Jesus, it's amazing how anti-Jesus the vampire stuff is, and how detrimental even the name of Jesus is to these things. Oh, but they want to claim him. Rest assured. Throughout the Dark Ages, this is the third point. Throughout the Dark Ages, a vampire priest, a priest of the Nosferatu, or the undead, lay concealed within the altar at the front of Roman Catholic cathedrals. I really hope this isn't true. The priest lay concealed within the altar. That's why they were about the size, apparently about the size of a casket. Big enough for someone to comfortably lie down inside of. It wouldn't be inconsistent with the Gnostic origins of Roman Catholicism, though, by Ken Johnson, or The Windswept House by Malachi Martin, where he talks about the Jesuits basically being Satanists. The fourth claim is that if Bill followed the prescribed ceremonial rituals, he too would die and be resurrected a vampire as well. And live forever, right? It is important to note that the Gnostic texts of this kind... Hang on a second. Oh, and by the way, Bill Schneblin has been happily serving the Lord for decades and has renounced all connections with his vampiric cult. It is important to note that Gnostic sects of this kind often teach that Jesus Christ was purely a spiritual being that didn't leave footprints and could not have been nailed to a cross, taking the idea of a spiritual resurrection to a whole new unbiblical level. Yeah, of course, usually in Gnosticism, and I think also Islam, you're usually going to have, Judas Iscariot being crucified instead of Jesus, because, God miraculously made Judas look like Jesus, and he got all nailed up and everything. It's like, how did that work out? Whatever. Any old thing. John, the actual apostle, not John behind the twisted Gnostic pseudepigraphal books like the Apocryphon of John and things like this. John, the real John, strongly fought against these beliefs, the Gnosticism, the ghosty Jesus, and all these things. He fought against them strongly while he was still alive. In fact, we owe John's gospel and his 3 epistles to John's battles against them. After John's death, a Gnostic leader penned the Apocryphon of John in the 2nd century. It claimed that Jesus bestowed John with secret occult knowledge, where strong hang on a second. And this Apocryphon of John and the Gnostics were strongly opposed by students of John, such as Irenaeus of Lyon. You can see more about that in Ken Johnson's book, The Demonic Gospels, and our card ministry on the Lost Books. That's the book if you want to get that one on the Demonic Gospels. Around the same time, there appears to have begun a line of apostolic succession for each of the close followers of Christ. To our understanding, even today, characters from the Gospels, such as Peter, John, Mary Magdalene, etc., are titles held by high immortal initiates and fallen angels to perpetuate the idea that John and other disciples are still alive. So how on earth did they write the Gnostic Gospels a century after they died? Oh, well, maybe they didn't die, or maybe they died and were raised again, right? By witchcraft or something like this. And this is where you get the idea of the Gnostic Gospels, in my opinion. This is me putting the pieces together that I've seen, that I've learned, into something that I think would be a pretty consistent backstory for all of this. Mary Magdalene, I believe, may also be the same person as what's that word? Aphrodite spelled backwards. I forget what it is. The book where the guy went underground and met, Aphrodite spelled backwards. I think that she might also be posing as Mary Magdalene. Anyways. In fact, Lucifer Dethroned gives a detailed... The name's going to come to me. It's going to come to me. Edidorpa. Oh, let's see. That John. Okay. Oh, okay. In fact, Lucifer Dethroned gives a detailed list of each of these pseudo-apostolic lines of succession. John seems to be very closely linked with Freemasonry and vampiric cults. In fact, one of the ways that you're supposed to be able to make the elixir of life is utilizing an alchemical formula, blood of a child. Nicholas Flamel would hear nothing of it, apparently. Several years, and this is a quote from Bill's book. We'll be ending up here in a minute. Several years later, we were told that we had to amass all 12 of the ancient lines of initiatic power in order to really acquire the Grail in all of its fullness. What then would this Grail give? We would attain true immortality. We would drink from this completed Grail and live forever. The Master, who brought Sharon and me into this, claimed to be more than 165 years old. Our teachers laid it out before us. Here were the metaphysical mountains we needed to scale to attain this goal. Peter, Roman Catholic priesthood, is what he's to have begun. So we would see him behind Jesuitism, more than likely. Andrew is supposed to have been behind the Druidic high priesthood, which I'm imagining that these are the different places that they actually went to as missionaries. And the Christianity would have gone in to these different areas that had these problems. But then, after their death and all these things, it got twisted and blended around so that, oh, no. They were really in favor of this. They just turned Christianity into an amalgamation. of paganism and Christianity. Oh, I see. So Alexander Hislop is making the same argument as a Jehovah's Witness and the same argument that would back up this apostolic line of pagan succession. Andrew, Druidic high priesthood. James, Eastern Orthodox high priesthood. Or Eastern Orthodox priesthood, sorry. John, the Masonic order. Philip, the Tibetan Bonpa Buddhist priesthood. Bartholomew, the African Ashati line, modern Vodun. Thomas, Hinduism and Tantra Yoga. Matthew, initiated seers. James, Native American, Cherokee line. Thaddeus, Arab alchemy. Ishmael is Muslim Thalamic line. 11 reference. I actually need to make 10 and 11 separate. Sorry. 11. Simon Zelotes. The Satanic High Priesthood, or the Satanic Priesthood. Simon the Zealot. And Judas Iscariot, the Satanic High Priesthood. This may help explain the bizarre pilgrimage our lives went through in the 1970s. We got into virtually every one of these religious lines trying to seek this grail, trying to bring it all together. The alchemy involved grew intense and, of course, quite demonic. We were putting together quite an infernal goulash. That's from Lucifer Dethroned by Bill Schneblin, pages 242 to 243. And you can pick up an ebook of it, or you can order a hard copy from Amazon. Let's pack that up. Has this parasite, this vampiric cult within Roman Catholicism, has it celebrated Easter as a pagan festival for centuries inside Christianity? Think about this. It ties in so closely with the Hollow Earth and the Shaver mystery. Who were the bad guys in the Shaver mystery again? People that were tortured beyond belief, underground, mutated beyond description, who had one thought: to torture and to kill others. And they would kidnap surface dwellers and things. Sounds very Missing 411 to me. They were called the Doro, or the Dora, I think. The Tarot, no, the Darrow is what they were called. They were called the Darrow in the Shaver Mysteries. Sounds very much like these vampiric people. They live an awfully long time. They're underground. They have one thought, that is to kill and torture. And they're within Roman Catholicism. Remember that story I told you as well of the giant below the Vatican? There's some weird stuff going on. Highly encourage you guys to familiar yourself with the lore surrounding Hollow Earth. You guys are troopers. All three of you have stuck around this whole time. I appreciate you. Here are some details regarding the satanic celebrations around Easter time. These are only the ones that we are told about in Lucifer Dethroned. This is Appendix 1. Or parts of it. So one of the things that they celebrate are major Roman Catholic feast days, especially Easter. Bill Schneblin refers to it as the Feast of Istar, right there. Good Friday, Christmas, the Feast of Sol Invictus is what they claim it as, apparently. St. John's Night. All of those, I believe, are labeled as triple double obelisk, which is look out. They are hunting for you, basically. This requires a human sacrifice. Any of those holidays, apparently, requires a human sacrifice, male or female, ideally a Christian minister, a Christian ex-Satanist, or the child of a Christian. You guys can read all of that if you have a care. Sometimes we focus too much on proving Christianity and Christ's resurrection without remembering that there could be Christians sitting or hiding in our churches who still hold these twisted views today. How are we going to handle this? How does this information change our defense of the resurrection's historicity and the supernatural? Let us know what you think below. I highly recommend that you guys check out Bill Schneblin's testimony in Lucifer Dethroned, The Confessionals, episode 214, former Luciferian Bill Schneblin, and The Vampires and Werewolves by Dr. Bill Schneblin, which is an hour and 18 minutes. There's a link to that right there. You can also see our card ministry page on the Ex-Vampire. Links are there. And if you have any questions or you want to let me know, put something in there. I'll see it. So, long story short, let's sum it up with this. This is Barnabas. That was Easter. Okay. Was Easter a pagan festival? Is it a pagan festival today? I don't think so. To me, so far, it looks like Easter and Passover were used synonymously. In fact, I believe it was the Geneva Bible that was the first one to only use the word Passover. Every other one used them simultaneously. The Bishop's Bible used it in 3 places. 2 of those, the King James Bible decided to translate as Passover. One of them, Acts 12:4, it retained as Easter. I'm not quite sure why, but Easter, it seems, has always been synonymous with Passover. Gail Ripplinger talks about it here under our section called Pagan Festival in the KJV. She talks about the what she sees as the King James Bible's built-in definition of the word Easter. The genuine, then the counterfeit, is what she says right there. She claims that Easter, talking about the star in the east, East Star, is Christ. Rising in the east, a picture of Christ. And apparently it is from stir and stern in the Germanic languages. She does not apparently agree with Alexander Hislop, even though she highly recommends Alexander Hislop as probably the one book outside the Bible that they don't want you to read. She doesn't agree with him against the King James Bible, though. She sees it as a good word that is included. It is a perfectly good word identifying the resurrection of Jesus. Just dump the eggs and bunnies. And then she talks about eastward and the four quarters of the earth and all these different references here. And we provided links to all of them so you can see the context. That was no easy feat. So this is basically the exact text from her book, the dictionary inside the King James Bible. My only question for Gail, and this kind of encapsulates everything together. My only question is why then the triquetra, the New King James Version logo, the 666 Mobius, as she likes to call it, and the word Lucifer, which have similar stories to the word Easter, and have supposed pagan roots, as does the word Easter. Why the triquetra and Lucifer must be demonized and Easter must be sanctified. I think it's probably because Gail is aware of the history of the word Easter, that it was in the translations before the King James Bible, so she can't make a case against the word Easter. She has to be in favor of the word Easter. Lucifer, she can't. There's no positive connection with the morning star or Venus. It's only this cultural thing. Lucifer means Satan. It has a bad history. The triquetra, it can't mean anything to do with the Trinity. The idea of three sons is pagan and awful and bad. And no, the triquetra is a bad logo. But Easter has a similar problem, especially with Pan-Babylonianism. It's seen as a pagan word. Gail isn't able to back that up, though. She isn't able to get behind that argument. And she also doesn't argue against it, really. She says that, like it just said above, that first came the good definition, Christ, all of this stuff, and then came the bad part of it. I think it's because that time was associated with resurrection and life, and God did it, and it gets twisted. But why do we have this biased treatment of the triquetra logo, which we've gone over in other videos, and the word Lucifer, which we've gone over in other videos? Why do they need to be demonized? And why does Easter need to be sanctified? Is it because it's a word and because it stands in opposition to modern translations and it's not a symbol? Or is it just because we're biased? One must ask, if this word were not in the KJV, but instead was in modern versions, if the modern versions translated Easter, Pascha as Easter in Acts 12:4 and the King James hadn't, or maybe say the modern translations use the word Easter in another place other than Acts 12:4. Think about it. We must ask, if this word were not in the KJV, but instead were used by modern translations, would Gail have attacked Easter rather than defend it? Would she have gone after Easter as a pagan evil word that doesn't belong in the Bible instead of defending it? If the triquetra was on the King James Bible cover instead of a modern version, it would be defended. Same thing with the word Lucifer. Would she have attacked Easter instead of defending it? I think absolutely. Absolutely. She would have gone after that thing like it was no tomorrow. She'd been a whole chapter probably in New Age Bible versions, no doubt. No doubt. Further, if the pagan word, if it is, belongs in the undefiled KJV, if it is pagan, and if it belongs in the King James Bible, which I think is fine, it actually helps us to realize that Easter and Passover are synonymous. It helps us preserve that part of our English history. If the word if it belongs in is pagan, and if it belongs in the King James Bible, what does this mean for the other terms some identify in modern Bibles? I've got to work on this wording. Further, if the pagan word, if it is, belongs in the undefiled KJV, what does this mean for the other terms some identify in the modern Bible? So, like, if we see some word in the King James Bible or in a modern version that's like, oh, that's a bad pagan word, like disaster. Oh, that means unfortunate situation caused by a star. So we see that in modern translations. Gail actually makes this argument, kind of. She's like, disaster. Oh, we shouldn't have that in the Bible because it's holy, pure, and undefiled and stuff like this. And it's like, well, if Easter is a pagan word, Sam Gipp and everybody else, and it belongs in the King James Bible, we can't really keep making those kind of arguments, can we? Something to think about. To me, and this is my opinion, if you disagree with me, please tell me. To me, Gale's does not seem like a fair and unbiased treatment. I feel that if Easter appeared in modern versions, not the KJV, we would not hear one positive word about it from Gale. What do you think? Let me know down below. You guys can pick up that book. And she also includes, I believe, a PDF still of the section that includes a free PDF download, a preview of this book on her website, and you guys can actually read the entire section about Easter, which is pages 79 to 82. Highly recommend those videos. There's just so much. There's so much hidden on this page. There's like a whole week's worth of study, and if you guys come up with things based on what I have found and I've put on this page regarding Easter, please let me know. And we'll have to talk more in the future about the idea of the you know, the underbelly that we've talked about. The Nosferatu priest in the altar, the giant below the Vatican, the hairy giants, I believe in Malta, I believe it was underground there. Very, very interesting situation described by Mr. Mythos. All of that tying together, and you'll also see the triquetra come up in that discussion as well. Just so much stuff. And we haven't even mentioned the chapter that I think should be exorcised from New Age Bible versions and thrown in the garbage. We haven't even talked about that hardly yet at all. We will sometime. All right, so I think that's about it. Let me know what you guys would like to see us make videos on. If there's something that you want to see me research, if there's something that you want to see talked about, let me know. And check out the comment section below. There's all kinds of links down there and things that you guys will like, I'm sure. And please, read your Bible like the devil's after it, because he is. And there is a Bible version conspiracy. And I think that it's manipulating King James Bible believers just as much, if not more, than our KJV critical brethren. We'll talk more in the future. And we're going to keep building on this theme, I'm sure. Alrighty. Take care. Change this layout. There we are. I appreciate you guys hanging out this long. It's ridiculous what you guys have to put up through from me. Anyways, I appreciate it. I don't know if anybody's up for an after show or not, but I am tired and I do have to work tomorrow, which is unlike our usual. Okay, I might not be able to see your comments tonight. That might be the issue. Ah, here we go. Spray arm, about time. Can't wait forever. I hear you. Spray arm, spray arm, spray arm. Hello there, spray arm. Daniel Jones, hi. Spray arm. No noise. Egypt was... Here. Well, I can't really show it, but Egypt was... Kamel and Mizraim, among other names. I'm going to be crashing my brethren. Sad we don't get to see Carl. Oh, I know. It's bad. Hey, I can show you something, though. You'll like this. I think he's outside. I think he's outside hunting, probably, at this point. But this picture's got to go on my wall or something. I was trying to do a little photo shoot of Carl a couple weeks ago, trying to get something for like a shirt or a mug or what have you, because we had discussed this. And I got one good shot. Moving around and being goofy. Maybe there's another couple of decent ones that might work, but I got one that was just like, yes. I'll have to hold it up for you, though. That was perfect. Completely perfect. The winking, something like, you know, relax, it's just a conspiracy theory, or I don't know. There's just all kinds of ways to use that. What I would like to do is maybe put Carl's face in place of King James's face or something, or I don't. There's all these ideas that have swum around in my head. Let me know what you guys think about that. All right, so I probably better sign out before anything gets weirder. Oh, I will hang out for a minute after the stream just in case anybody wants to have a word with me and tell me how wrong I am or what have you. I'm open to that. I would love to hear it. But, oh, and we're also 2 subscribers. 2. From 700 subscribers. Thank you. Thank you for subscribing to this channel. Every subscriber helps. If you're watching this video and you haven't subscribed and you've watched all this way through, what are you doing not subscribed? Let's go. Let's keep chasing the King James rabbit down the conspiracy hole and let's find out what's at the bottom. Hopefully we don't run into any Darrow on the way there. So I'll say that. All right. Thank you very much for watching. Read that King James Bible like the devil's after it, because there truly is a Bible version conspiracy. And I'll see you next time. Have a good night. I look forward to talking to you soon. I'm still here. Bye-bye.